Hey guys, so here's a bit of a more long form video talking about the book that I'm writing. So in this book there's a main character and she's a girl, specifically a trans girl, getting this out of the camera, who is, she's struggling in life. Her parents are both sickly, her mom has a weak heart. In this world it's called a weak heart, at least. It's actually chronic illness. I've not decided which chronic illness she has, but definitely one that causes lots of pain at all times, which is basically every chronic illness out there. But yeah, she's in lots of pain all the time, and she really, really struggles. Her mom. And her dad has major sickness, which is what I made up for this world. Basically, her dad is sick because he overused his mage's powers. Back when they still had a solid stream of income. And just had to fix my mask real quick. And basically, the problem that arises in this world. Sorry, my glasses are in the frame. Is that, she can't exactly move up a social class, no matter how much she hunts, no matter how much money she gets. It will always go to her dad's medicine, which is extremely expensive, and they cannot afford it. They try their best to get as much as possible, like the whole family. Her mother forages even though she's extremely unwell. She still forces herself to forage for goods because her daughter does not know how to. And the herbs are being used in food. They do not have to buy food, and their neighbors, they work together with their neighbors. Some neighbors, exchange the vegetables in exchange for herbs. Because they know the family is struggling. But those neighbors are all down in town. So my main girl has to go down to the town to grab this food. Because they live on a hill. Well, not hill, mountain. Well, no, it's mostly a hill. It's kind of in between a hill and a mountain, and they live on top, basically. Not directly on top, that's a forest, but kind of a bit way down, not much. And a bit further down lives her best friend. Her family also is not making a lot of income. Of course, her grandmother still works. The main friend's girlfriend, the main girl's friend, like that. She's a seamstress, but her clothes take very long to make, and she is only 14. My main character is only 16. They hang out because they literally only have one other friend and one other person their age around, who is willing to hang out with the poorest people in town, the people that aren't that liked by the other kids, because they're poor. Yeah, there's definitely classism going on here, very much so. And yeah, there's a lot of just community exchange in this town, but that's not relevant to the story. What is relevant is that their third friend, Benedict, he has the local newspaper. Why is he holding a local newspaper? He cannot afford that one. Well, that's not going to be explained in the story, and I don't know a reason for it. But he figured out that in the local newspaper, it says, because he's the one that can read out of all of them, literally he can only read because he was part of the church at some point. That's his backstory. I don't know if I'll ever reveal that in the books, because this is a multi-book series, multi-novella series, might I say. And he read there that the king is looking for a bride, but not just any bride, one that is a peasant. And basically, they're like, oh my gosh, the king's looking for a peasant bride? My main character now does not believe this. She's like, okay, he's only trying to get points from us. The prince is gonna marry a noble woman. Definitely. But the king, he's still looking for a bride for his son. And let's just say he actually is looking for a peasant. It's not a lie. But why will be revealed in the second book. Only then, of course. So I haven't written that yet. So we're not gonna talk about that. But her best friend, she's like, oh my gosh, the prince wants to marry me. Yay! Like, of course, she's like, okay, he's probably not gonna pick me, but still the chance of having it happen is worth going there. So she wants to go there. But my main character is like, oh my gosh, do not do this. You cannot go alone. In her brain. She doesn't say it out loud. And I don't think I've written it out either that she thinks this. Because she immediately gets the information that the king is hiring anybody who passes the first test. And, fails at the others or chooses to fail at the others. And my main character is instantly like, oh my gosh, I am going. Like, I need to do this for the sake of my family. And she 100% is prepared to never see her parents again, just so they can live happily ever after. Just so both her parents, can have a happily ever after. She does not think that she is relevant enough to them to be in their happily ever after. Of course, her parents would disagree. They basically like, oh my gosh, please don't go. You are our happily ever after. But they don't really say that. They say more like, hey, it's your choice, you're mature enough to understand the consequences, but we would love for you to stay here. We do not need the money. But she knows they're lying, they do need the money for Alice's medicine, for example, and maybe get her mother pain medication. That is also, there's something that exists in this world. It's alchemy, the medicine. Because it is a bit of a fantasy and a bit of a paranormal story as well, because there's ghosts. The ghosts are going to be relevant in book 2, as well as paranormal dreams and dreamwalkers. So people who can influence others' dreams. But they can only influence them. Yeah. I'm not going to say who's a dreamwalker in this world, because I have a character who's a dreamwalker. I'm not going to say their name or anything, but that's for the second book. Like, I have so many ideas for the second book. But first of all, the first book. It is your standard fluffy romance. She gets to the castle and then she doesn't meet the prince, but a painter. A mysterious painter. Who is cursed to be ugly, so his face swirls around all the time, like a swirly filter. Which is annoying to look at, so obviously he's ugly. In that regard. Like, you cannot look at his face properly, that's ugly. But alongside that, there's one more thing that makes him ugly. Spikes all over his body. Red ones. Like a dragon's. Except he's just a regular human and he's got spikes everywhere, which make it very unpleasant to hug him. So also ugly in that regard. Unhuggable, actually. And they destroy his clothes, his really expensive clothes. Why does he have such expensive clothes? They look like they're on the standard of the king himself. But maybe it's because he's a royal painter, or maybe there's more to him than just being a painter. I'm not gonna reveal if there's actually more to him or not. You're gonna have to read my book to find out. It's gonna come out in, I'd say, November. If I'm happy with the book so far. Like, if I proofread this I plan on proofreading all of this book on the 31st of October. Yeah. That's just... Yeah, that's just, what I'm planning on doing. But I need to get my book done before that, of course. That's why I'm currently, like, in the zone. I'm going to continue writing this book, even if it takes me until, like, middle October. I'm going to write on this book every day, from today on. Anyways, In the story, by the way, at the end there's a wedding. I'm not gonna say whose wedding, but there is a wedding, and there is a kiss at the end of the wedding. No, well, technically. At the end of the main ceremony, then the second ceremony happens because I made up a wedding ritual for the story. Just to get it a bit more fantasy. Because it does take place in another world. The country is Adur. She's from Fak Marik. That's the name of her town. She's from Marik, and the main city is Kurit. That's the place names. Her name is Alicia, but I've been calling her Alicia so far a lot. Her best friend is Erlis. Her love interest is named Bellamy. Obviously a bit of a different naming scheme for him. That's meant to be that way. He's meant to stand out. The queen is called Marigold. The king's name I've forgotten because he's not interesting and not relevant. Well, he is extremely relevant, but he's always referred to as the king with a capital K. I've chosen that because this world, kings are on the same level as gods. So they have their king and they have their god, and the church worships both. You know? I'm not gonna say whether or not I chose to include that in the second book. Something about, the king being so holy and stuff like that. Because I'm still deciding whether or not I should include this specifically. Because the second book's already filled to the brim with stuff. Like, it's filled to the brim with so much stuff that I might need to make a third book. Like, might need to split the second book into 2 novellas. Because, yes, I want to write novellas. I'm thinking about being an author who writes novellas, mostly. And my book will be available as an ebook, hopefully on Kindle. At least, hopefully, it will be available as an ebook on Kindle. If I manage to do that, get it on Kindle, self-publish it. It will be available for 99 cents to buy. So just so that really everyone who has the money can buy it. Because this is not a lot of money, a lot of people are going to be able to buy it, And if you're like, hey, I don't know if I can buy this because the main character, she's a trans girl. Don't worry, it is not outright stated. It is just mentioned in the terms of she cannot have periods and she cannot give birth. So that basically doesn't make her less of a woman. That's also like a thing that's just like, oh, okay. Everything's fine, Obviously, like, it's not fine with the king and queen who wanted heir. But they'd be fine if, like, their son was trans, if she, ends up being the one to marry the prince. She does end up being the one to marry the prince, and it's not Erles or Shirley. Shirley is also meant to have a bit of a different name because her noble family, she was a former noble, her family is from a bit far away. She's from the capital, but like behind the capital. In this direction. Not in this direction where the main character lives. Yeah. That's basically it. Shirley, by the way, is important because Erlis, the best friend of the main girl, she is like, oh my gosh, Shirley is so cute. Am I in love? And she teaches me how to read. This must be true love. And she likes flowers. Yeah, basically those two are just like head over heels for each other. In the beginning, at least, I haven't decided where the relationship will go for the second book. So this might be a tragic one, I might get some drama, or I might just keep it as very wholesome and fluffy. It's not an important relationship to the story, so I feel like I can break the whole wholesome and fluffy scheme that I've got going on for this whole book, the wholesome and fluffy vibes, I can break those for their relationship. By the way, Benedict, he's the friend who can read, he will be important in the second book. That's why I included him in the first one. Yeah. And I'm just gonna say, this book is going to be so good. Like, it is going to be my best work yet. So stay tuned, and I'll give you guys updates. So bye!